inspired you to become a property stylist?
So I think it was actually on a trip to India. To be honest, it was more about studying interior design. I'd been in banking and finance for a long time, and I just kind of had this light bulb moment. I want to study interior design, and went on that journey for a couple of years. And in that journey, we had bought and sold with the same agent quite a few times, and um, and then he sort of just mentioned to me, "We always love your houses. My stylist is sick. Would you mind doing some consulting for me?" And that kind of opened my eyes to this world of property staging. I had no idea, this is easily, 12, 13, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
It wasn't an industry. So,
And that's when you launched KE Property.
yeah, well, I launched KE Decoration and Design, which is the parent company ultimately. And, in a perfect world, that sounds like that was the launch. But the reality of what happened was I did some consulting. His stylist came back. In the meantime, I was still working full time. I found out I was pregnant with my first daughter, and life just went on.
Yeah.
And then he got in contact with me out of the blue and said, "Look, my stylist has left. Are you keen to come back?" And that's kind of what launched. Sort of gave me a little bit of a taste test, and that's kind of what launched that. But the business KE Property Styling only came about probably about 4 years ago, even though the business is 12 years old, mostly because I wanted to rebrand and I wanted the business name to tell people what we did.
Yeah. Okay. And given that you've been doing it for so long, what are the key benefits of having a property stylist come in for sale?
Yeah, I think mostly people should probably think of it more as a consultation type service because every property is different. There isn't, one solution. So it's just more about educating people about how a buyer or a fresh pair of eyes will see their property, how people should move through a property, and mostly around the layout of furniture, decor. And I always talk to people about inviting people in. So you want to be invited in often with artwork or decor. And then as you move through, you want to kind of be assisted by the next thing, like, oh, and then kind of get invited down and in and out.
Yeah. In our line of work, we always property reports, and we can really see the difference when a property's been styled. It just gives it that extra wow factor.
Yeah.
In photos, especially.
Absolutely.
Seeing something on Domain or realestate.com for the first time.
Yeah.
And I think it gives you that sense of wanting to live there.
And I think that's what people need to think about. It's not necessarily when they arrive, that you are selling online first. And I think statistically, you have 6 seconds to engage in a property. If you think about sitting on a couch and just scrolling, so you need to stop, click, and then you want to see enough that you actually want to get out on a Saturday or a Wednesday night and go see that open. So I think it's really important. It's just about engagement and inviting people down. It's not the only factor why someone would buy.
Yes. And how do you approach each property project?
Yeah.
Given that, you service quite a few different areas and different style of housing.
Yeah. So it just depends on the area, depends on the type of property. Most of our stock, all of our stock will pretty much move into most properties. And it's quite interesting because as a team, we would often say it's so funny how the same set of furniture would look in one house compared to another. Like it really does make a difference, give the house some personality. So a lot of that these days, because the industry is changing, is what the vendors are saying. Vendors have a lot more buy-in now. They have a lot more opinions about what they want. So it's about having a conversation with who are the decision makers. What do you have in mind? And a lot of that is around budget too, especially now in the current climate. So it's maybe we won't stage the entire house. We might think about what's important for the photography. Let's just do the photography shots and create a sense of arrival. Maybe the third and fourth bedroom on the upper level in the top corner don't really, we don't really need to spend the money there. But yeah, just having all the conversations and then bringing it back to target market, what's on trend, because sometimes people kind of consider furniture hire as in we don't need it. We already have a dining table. There is already a bed, but it's not about that bed or that dining table. It's about a cohesive vision for the house and the right furniture for the right space. I think I always sort of say to people, it's not about what you live with. Nobody wants what they live with. The part of the appeal is having something that you want.
And in terms of vendors, are you finding a difference between owner-occupied sellers and investor
Oh,
sellers?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And developers.
Yes.
Yeah, very price driven
Mm.
most of the time, an investor or a developer. It's obviously not, I don't want to generalize, but sometimes it's more about the transaction because 10 years ago, it was like, I'm not sure if I should stage. Now is I need to stage. Now it's now about getting that the most efficiently, the most cost effective solution.
Yeah.
So, owner occupiers have a different kind of energy because especially when there's a lot of emotions involved, especially deceased estates, families seeing a property maybe very differently to what they're used to seeing it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's encouraging and it became uplifting. It's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. We got a review yesterday for a son saying, I never knew my mum's house could look like this.
Oh wow. It really makes a huge difference, especially if there's been furniture in a property for say 50 odd years. In some cases,
Yep.
where style hasn't changed in that particular house for whatever reason.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I had a brother and sister deceased estate the other day, and they were just, it was the most amazing retro high end. The amount of expense, even though it was kept in a time capsule that had gone into this property, was outstanding. And the agent's like, this house is outstanding. And I'm like, oh my God, look at the expense that's gone into here. But the siblings were like, oh my God, it's so ugly. I hate it. Look at all this wallpaper. And I think that when you have that lens, you can't see past it. So where I was saying, oh my gosh, no, like we need to let the house shine and we'll probably scale back the furniture and the our personality wouldn't be in the furniture and the styling because the house has so much personality. And the son even said to me, like, this is a 60-year-old man. He said, now, are you being all salesy or are you being serious? And I'm like, no, there's a beautiful energy in this house. There's a home, there's a life. It was an Italian family. And I think this is what staging is. We've got to let the house shine.
Yeah.
We're not doing a renovation.
Yes.
But let people see how they can enjoy this house. So structurally sound.
Yeah. And I've had a look at your website and I see that you offer a number of other packages beyond just staging. So what other services are you offering?
Yeah. So if anything to do with any brands that might need to be fitting out. So thinking about props. So like recently we did a shoot for a local flooring company where the photographer worked with before many times, just said, look, we're going to photograph this flooring, but we need some furniture in the shots as well. So that's a good one. Mattress companies with cushions and decor. We did a theatre company recently. So it's just kind of anything you think about furniture being involved that you might not necessarily want the expense, because there's a lot of effort in moving furniture.
Yeah.
That that's kind of where you think of us. So those kind of shoots.
And trends and designs always change. So how do you keep updated on trends and designs?
Yeah, I think like any business, we obviously have budgets that are built into where we can buy and where we can invest that year, and it really is an investment in our inventory. But at the same time, I've got an ex-banking background. I want to make sure that what we are investing in, it's actually more time consuming than people most think, that it's something that will see as an investment in our business for a couple of years, and something that I can use across multiple types of properties, and not really buying into trends. If you remember like the copper that was in recently and stuff like that. And I generally joke that once it's in Kmart, it's done. So if you see it high end and it's so special that it ends up in Kmart or replicated by Target, it's, buy a couple of pieces, keep the trend in, but you wouldn't be investing a lot of money in it. Yeah.
And can you share a success story or case study where property styling services led to a significant increase in a sale price of a property?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, generally with that question, I feel like there's a lot of factors that can go into it because, statistically, you never really have two identical properties. Like I quoted one the other night, we staged 3 years ago, 2 side-by-sides in Aberfeldy, outstanding builds, basements, stunning. But now the vendors are going to sell and stage the second one, but it's going to be occupied. Now, an occupied house, when you're working with other people's furniture, you won't get the same. It's hard to get the same result, especially when people are living in it and a dog. And then they've told me that the house that we staged 3 years ago is also going on the market, different agent, different stager. So I said, oh, that's going to be interesting. You're going to have two houses at the same time.
Yeah.
But the owner said to me, no, the other house isn't as big. It's not as small. It's not as, doesn't have the same floor space, even though it's got a similar layout. And not only that, but you've got two townhouses, and one slightly angled towards the city, where the other one doesn't have the same views. But recently we did have a really cool success story in Fitzroy, where you just sort of had like a triple story investment. It's probably been in the family for about 25 years, not that long, but tired. But it did have, you know, the vendors were probably, with the right advice, they did refresh it. They gave it a paint, redid the floors, spent a little bit of money. Obviously, the icing was the staging that just, complemented it. And the buyer's advocate came through and said, look, you know, we had, huge amounts. So we had like 80 groups through and 340 above reserve, which you're not seeing. Like this is May 2024. Now it's sort of about getting a house sold. But I think that there's a lot that goes into a campaign like that. You had the vendors on the right page. We were there 3 months before it even got staged, giving them advice about what colors to paint, if the blind should come down, if they should do the floors. So knowing their target market, the right advice with an agent, obviously marketed brilliantly. So it was just what I would call a perfect recipe.
Yeah, with everyone else involved as
well.
Yeah,
lots of different, there was brokers involved. There was a lot of people giving advice, and we don't have a crystal ball. We didn't know that was going to happen, but it's just a nice, when you've got a property in demand, that you can reach those figures was outstanding.
And would you normally recommend, if it hasn't been painted in a while, to freshen it up with a fresh coat of paint?
It just depends. I think it depends on the property. It depends on the transaction that's going to take place, and it depends on the climate. I would never talk about spending money that shouldn't be spent, and I always talk about doubling your return in whatever it is. So it just depends. It could be that it just needs a good, sugar soap, or maybe a little bit of a touch up. Again, a vacant house just highlights all those things. A staged house can really detract from some of those things. It can be a bit of a magic wand.
And what advice would you give homeowners who are considering property styling but unsure of the value? I think kind of
No, but it's good. It's because it's kind of like, I'm quite conservative anyway, just personally. So it's always kind of about knowing where to put, your investment. But I think ultimately it's just about connecting with a brand visually. Do you even like their look? Reaching out and understanding whether you're going to actually vibe with the person that you're talking to, and then allowing that person to come down and actually see the property. And I think vendors need to understand that takes time, and some companies will charge a consultation fee. It's quite low to allow for that 1 hour of consultation. And then they can take that 1 hour investment and go, yep, you know what? I actually trust this person. I can go on this journey and I can see the investment. Or, you know what? I'm going to take that consultation and maybe stage it myself. I think there's a lot of value in that consultation. So that's what I would vote for. Lean on a professional, get them to come down, and just know that, respectfully, it will cost a small fee to steal someone's time, which it should, because we're all professionals.
I definitely see the value in it, and you can definitely see the properties that have been staged versus not when you're just browsing online for homes.
Even for myself, and even like my staging team, like, one of the girls went and did a pickup the other day, and she put in the group chat, oh my God, who staged this house? It looks amazing. And it's our stock. And you can do that to someone who's constantly in the industry. It's really nice that we can impact people that way.
Thank you so much for your time. It was nice to have a chat, and we'll pop your details in below.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.